This is for Algebra 2, and this is our first day talking about the quadratic formula where we focus on the discriminant. The quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Quadratic formula is used to solve quadratic equations. It will always work. We like to solve quadratics on the calculator because we can do second calc number 2 for 0. But sometimes it doesn't work. For example, when the graph doesn't touch the x-axis and we say no real roots, there's actually an answer. It's just imaginary, and you can get it using the quadratic formula. Remember that if you're going to use the quadratic formula, you need to write it in standard form first, which means everything's on the same side, and then you go x squared and x and then the constant. So this one, the 5 needs to move, and you need to have 2x squared plus x minus 5 equals 0. Before you start working with the quadratic formula. So let's look at the discriminant first. The expression b squared minus 4ac is what's under the square root or the radical sign. You can use the discriminant to figure out the number of solutions and the type of solutions. So you do this kind of ahead of time. If it is greater than 0, which means it is positive, you will have 2 real solutions. They might be positive, they might be negative, they might be a decimal, that's okay. But you will have 2 real solutions. If it is equal to 0, you will have 1 real solution. Once again, it can be positive, it can be negative, it can be a decimal. If it is less than 0, which means it's negative, you have 2 imaginary solutions, which means you have to have an I in the answer. So let's find the discriminant. Start out by figuring out what is A, what is B, and what is C. A is the coefficient for x squared, so it's 1. B is the coefficient for x, and so it's negative 6. And C is your constant. You can either list them to the side, or you can come up here and label them. Whatever works best for you. Now, the discriminant is b squared minus 4ac, so we're going to use that formula. You got to be careful, since this is a negative 6 that we're squaring, it has to go in parentheses before you square it. Minus 4 times a is 1 times c is 10. So punch that in your calculator, and you'll get negative 4. This is the discriminant. It's negative, so the nature of the roots is I'll have 2 imaginary answers. Okay, A is 1, B is negative 6, C is 9. So negative 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 9. Type that in your calculator. You get 0. That is the discriminant. Since it is 0, I will have 1 real root. Those are both going to make up your answer, 2 parts. A is 1, B is negative 6, and C is 8. Punch that in your calculator. Negative 6 squared minus 4 times A is 1 times C is 8. And you get 4. That's your discriminant. It's positive, so we'll have 2 real roots. So, same thing. Figure out A is 9, B is negative 48, C is 6. I got 0 for my discriminant, which means 1 real solution. A is 6, B is negative 60, C is a positive 96 because we had to move that over. So, negative 60 squared minus 4 times 6 times 96. I don't care if you write that down. You can just go straight to your calculator. You get 1296. It's positive, and so that means you have 2 real. A is negative 16. B is negative 2. C is 653. Notice I didn't even read the equation. Okay? I want to know the type of solutions. I have a formula. That's all I got to worry about. Got a huge number for this one, 41,796. All I care about is that it's positive, so I'm going to have 2 real. Now we have to find it. A is 3, B is negative 2, C is 7, negative 80. Find the discriminant. A is 2, B is 2, C is 3, negative 20. Okay, that's quadratic formula focusing on the discriminant. If you have questions, come see me during speed.